to our board meeting. Is there anyone here that wants to address this board with a question, an issue, or a concern that is not on tonight's agenda? Just here to observe. Okay, with that, I'll ask the clerk to take the roll.
Supervisor Michael Lanko,
Here.
Counselors Alex,
Here.
Fiorenza,
Here.
Mannion,
Here.
Lee Hood, here, Julie,
Here.
and Mark Bishop.
Here. Okay. Actually, we have a couple of individuals here, and so there's no need to keep them waiting any longer. I'm going to go right to the agenda item for the it's the hydrant valve flow testing agreement, correct, Rick? Yes, done. Yes. Okay. Did basically, I know the board is aware of the fact that there's programs, initiatives that we're doing intending to embark upon that are necessary for the upgrade and improvement of our water system. And so I know Doug and Rock have basically go on this program. And it's basically a testing program for our hydrants where the contractor would go through, take each hydrant, mark it with the recording of the flow rate recorded at that hydrogen, at that hydrant, and go through valves as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the numbers I think I've heard is we got about 1,200 hydrants in the system, close to maybe 3,000 valves. Yes. And this is a necessary function for both the New York State and the County Health Department as well. And it would be a benefit for us to get out in front of it. I'll be recorded and put into our computerized system that, you know, we're converting from a and paper copy system to the electronic system. We've got the SCADA in place as well. Is there anything I should add to
So do you want to add anything to turn over to John?
I think just a couple of things, right? We met with folks with fire flow inspections. After we had met with Sean Rush at Onondaga County DOH, and you know, she recommended that, you know, we get a program in place for testing hydrants, testing flows, and checking our valves. We have had discussions with the fire departments. There is a portion of this, if documented properly, it could reduce ISO insurance for ISO numbers, which could reduce insurance numbers for the community. I'll let John speak for himself, but part of the scope would include fire flows of the hydrants, regular maintenance, and then documentation through their proprietary system that we could download into our SCADA system. When they were done, the fire departments have asked us for this in the past, but when they're completed, they would have a ring on the steam reports that would tell us what type of flows come out of those hydrants. And as part of the program, Rock and I have discussed that there probably will be work that comes out of it, is you know, some of the system is older than other parts. The other portion that we asked them to do, which both Rock and I thought was of a benefit, from time to time on commercial projects, the water department gets requests to do fire flow tests so that commercial properties can include a design for sprinkler systems. Right now, Rock sends out a couple of the water department individuals that are familiar with fire flow testing, but that takes away from the regular duties. So fire flow inspectors does provide that service. And it would be a service that we would be able to pass along to, at no cost to, not no cost, but at their cost to, the people that request that. No cost to the town. And then it would help with manpower loading for rock, so we could keep people focused on what they normally do. We bring in experts to do the fire flow tests. And, you know, we don't get a lot of them, but, you know, maybe 3 or 4 a month, just enough to be.
Would that be through the planning board process?
It's usually through the building permit process.
Okay.
Right. The planning board building,
But
yes,
still, it would be within that, an escrow deposit, you know, yes, there are planning fees that are. Would come against that.
yes. If somebody called in, we would tell them, here's the cost to do.
To do that.
Yeah. So, Earl, John, if you want to get up and just. Yeah, introduce yourself.
And John Dunham, Vice President of Fire Flow Inspectors Incorporated. What they're talking about, we use PLS gauges that's all computerized and a computerized program that's 99.9% accurate. We also have the MAC 250 coming. So when we do the valve exercising, we have the spin doctor that will record the valve, how many turns up. It will give you a GPS location and they give you a graph in the computer program. In flow testing, what we do is that when we get up to the hydrant, we do a GPS, which is recorded in the system. Physical locations recorded. The picture of the hydrant, and at the end, we'll give you a graph, but it will tell you what the hydrant did and what it can do. You take it down to 20%. We cannot go past 20%. We have to stop at 20. So if we're flowing at 80 and we get it all the way down to 20, that's as far as we can go. This computer program will tell you exactly what you're going to get. There's no guesswork in it, and it'll also tell you how much water we use. Has a time on it. We flow for 3 minutes and we start shutting it down. We will then, from the computer, you're going to insert both sides of the nozzles will have a ring. This is the lowest ring. You got 4 different colors. Blue is the highest, then green. And there's a yellow and red. If the hydrant doesn't pass, there's something wrong with the hydrant. Right on the steamer connection, which is the big one, 4.5, we're going to put the out of service rings on them. This will give Jocko location. You'll see the ring, and he'll make plans of repairing that hydrant. This is a big operation. We expect to take it 4 months of just flow testing. Besides, whoever calls in and needs a flow test for new construction. Under IFC, the International Fire Code, you go in chapter 5, it'll tell you about flows, it will tell you about water, it will tell you about a lot of things where if you're going to put in like sprinklers and NFPA 13, you have to have a flow test done within 3 years before you can design that chart for the sprinklers. So a lot of times they want up to date. And the contractor gets a report, and every time we touch a hydrant, Jocko will get the report. Or Rocco, excuse me, we get the report automatically downloaded into this computer. He can, with a computer program, he will be able to print out work orders, and whatever's done to that hydrant will be recorded electronically. So everything's all set up. He just keeps going on forward. So ISO comes in, he'll go to his computer, they'll ask him for certain things, and he will have it all in that computer, can spit it out fast as they want it, and show that everything has a plan. So what they like to see is that if we tag a hydrant that's out of service, he would have his team have a plan within, let's say, 2 weeks, they're gonna repair it. Got to order parts, whatever. So ISO wants to see if you have a plan for maintenance. He has a plan for maintenance. You got flow testing done. You got up-to-date information done on all the hydrants, and all the valves will be exercised. The valves are going to go through the 3,000 of them all in 1 year. Then the following year, we can come in and exercise a valve spring and fall. You got to do it twice a year. You're gonna flush your hydrants. Every hydrant will be flush according to the plan, spring and fall next year. So there's a whole plan in this. This is the biggest one we worked on. But we have it planned out because we've done a lot of smaller towns, 50 hydrants, 100 hydrants. And they're gone. We have other places are looking at us now. They're waiting to see how we do on this, how it's done. Any questions?
How long does it take you at each individual hydrant?
We, from the time we arrive, unload the equipment, all the safety stuff and everything else and do the flow test, it's an average of 15 minutes.
That's on a standard hydrant. It doesn't have a lot of complications. Extend onto that if there's time materials involved. So one of the key things is your maintenance on the hydrants, right? You know, getting that grease on those caps, making sure they're gonna come loose the time they need. If there's any kind of fire or situation, respond and take care of the situation. Knowing that your hydrant's working, it's almost like insurance to the community, so that they know that it's gonna be operational when they need it. Those are key things that often get overlooked and forgotten about, especially, you know, maybe the hydrants in front of the houses get some attention, but the one over in the corner that's on the same line may not get that same attention. And if there's an accident in the road where they have a car fire or something, somebody's in there, and they get to that hydrant, you wanna make sure it's gonna be working, so. It's a good thing. The computer program is really neat. You know, as being younger than John, I hope with some of the technology and be able to track a GPS and have your records there, doing the work orders, you know, doing that all through the software, it's very beneficial.
The other thing we will do is that all the fire companies that service the town that will get a copy.
Oh, great.
So they will have the same thing. If they want to have questions, they can look up that hydrant. And if something goes wrong at the same time, they call the water department.
And with that spin Dr. John was talking about, is counting the number of turns down and up. So you might wonder, why does it matter? Well, counting the amount of turns actually is telling if that valve is fully working. You know, is it opening 3/4 of the way? Is it opening half the way? You know, is it actually closing properly? If you've got a valve that's on a line that's not fully open, that's going to restrict all your hydrants further down the line and cause problems for, you know, maybe the next road over. So it's an important thing to make sure we get out of this and get some data, get some information on it, make sure all those valves are open, things are flowing the way it should be. And it'll give you good information for your system.
It's a cost per hydrant and per valve, correct?
There's a cost. Our flow test and the service includes, it's $150 per hydrant. And for valve exercising, it's $100 per valve. And I didn't write that down. I have 1,214 hydrants and 3,049 valves. And for instance, flow tested is a 21-point hydrant inspection, hydrant caps, threads and lubricated, hydrant flow rate documented with Hercle IMS software programs. If it requires neutralization with chlorine water discharge, we'll have tablets upon the request. Installation of NFPA 291 hydrant flow rings. That's the colors I showed you. Installation of hydrant out of service rings, which we have. Electronic copy of all hydrant flows and hard copies of all hydrant flow tests. There'll be 3 of those, one for every fire company. If you're in the valve exercising, valve caps removed and painted valve caps blue. If we paint it blue, we test it. That's one way we can tell where we've been. Everybody knows it's working. Valve wells clean when needed. So the back 250, we can go in there. If it's full of sand and dirt and whatever, it has been done in years. We have the VAC 250, we can spray the water in there to loosen it up, then we can take the vac and suck it right back out. And then we're gonna have what they call a slit stick. We'll go down and lubricate the nut down there, which a lot of people never did. So we added that service to do that. Valve lubrication, valve exercise to use a state-of-the-art equipment that will count the number of turns for each valve, confirm an adequate opening and GPS location. Hydrant flush service includes 100 neutralized chlorine water discharge with tablets upon request, a record amount of water flow per hydrant. Our program will, when we do the flushing next year, it will count how many gallons have been used on that hydrant. At the end of the day, you can add up all the gallons. It just comes out in the report.
And the question that I think the board, or I certainly have, is, can you do all this in 1 year?
We counted it out and we're shooting for 4 months, starting May.
That was the hydrants, right?
Hydrant and valves.
Valves included in
Got 2 teams are gonna be running. The valves we're gonna start in April because we don't use water. And we don't dare to start flow testing unless it's really nice and warm until May.
Okay.
So we go from May, June, July, August, September, we should be done with that. With the valves, we start in April, we'll be done towards November. Turning every valve.
You had mentioned, post initial clean out that it's a twice yearly flushing, once in the spring and then in the fall. Is that, a statute or regulation, a best practice? What's driving?
And if NFPA 291 counts in that too. And your ISO counts in that you're flushing those, and your health department. You want every hydrant flush. You don't want to go down to the end of the line where a lot of water department's been doing for years. Go down the end of the street and just flush one hydrant, and let it run for 24 hours. We can flush one hydrant here and work our way up. So every hydrant had new chlorine readings in it. So everything's clean up. You don't want to get the bacteria to build up and goes over the hydrants.
And the 2 documents you just read, but those are regulations and those are known as best practices.
Best practices,
Okay.
NFPA
Yep.
291 tells you what the best practice there.
And my other question is, as I understand it, you'll use those colored circles to indicate the status of the hydrant. So then Rock's team can go and manually.
What it's
correct
gonna
it?
flow, they'll tell the fire company what it can flow. It's 1,000 gallons, 1,500, 2,500. It's gonna tell the fire departments what that hydrant can flow. So if you go to regular house fire, it's under 3,600 square feet, you need 1,000 gallons a minute for 60 minutes. So we wanna make sure the hydrants are flowing. But the bad part is if you only got a hydrant that's flowing 850 and you got a fire engine that can flow 2,000, it'll just be idling.
So those circles will stay on the hydrant.
Yes.
Once they're
Stay
tested.
right on permanently.
And the maintenance one will signal to Rock's team. And Rock, do you currently carry this maintenance out in-house?
Some of it we're gonna start doing.
Who does it now? Malone, okay,
So our goal is probably follow these guys around, fix all the
Okay.
hydrants and valves.
I think if we were honest with ourselves, we'd find a lot of this has been deferred maintenance.
that's,
Yeah,
I appreciate that. How old was some of our hydrants? Turn of the century? Have you worked with some that old?
I think there's some that are older on the map, and then there's
Yeah.
some that, gets to the newer ones, so. The older ones, if they haven't had a lot of attention, there'll likely be some problems that come up. And, Rocco's team will have to help support, as he said, follow behind us and those necessary repairs, but you don't know unless you do the testing and the valve turning, right? So a lot of times people might open a hydrant, get some water in that, but when do people actually turn the valves? Oh, not very often unless there's a main break, so it's gonna be interesting to go through it, and we do expect some valves that, may be seized or have some problems, but it's, you gotta dig in and actually start doing it before you actually know what those are.
Sure.
I got a few questions.
Go ahead.
What other municipalities around us have you done?
I do one hydrant over to Mexico for our apartment complex. Their insurance requested it. We have a bid going out to West Carthage. We got that bid into them for this year in June on their budget. We've been to I want to say Vermont. We done Williamstown in Vermont. That was 50 hydrants. We have a couple of engineers in Vermont we have done work for, flow tests in different places. And there's a
New York City area.
yeah, We sold a lot of equipment to Rutledge, Vermont, and there's other places we sold equipment, and there's 5 or 6 other bids we put out there to do the same thing we're doing here.
Okay, the other question was about, in the summer, we usually sometimes hire, people to paint the hydrants for us. Is that something we should not be doing because of this program? Or is it something we should still? be
No, you
doing?
can still paint them.
You know,
Jack, we'll have an offline conversation. I don't believe, my personal opinion is we don't need to be worrying about paint hydrants this big.
Yeah.
That's been one of the internal criticisms that I've had. We got the best looking hydrants. All their function.
Well, perhaps the
Mr.
chair-
Supervisor, is this for 24 or 25?
24.
24,
24. We're starting May of 24.
yeah.
Yes.
One of the things on the valve exercising. A lot of valves come shipped in before you put them in the ground to be halfway open or halfway closed or a quarter.
Mhm.
By valve exercising, we're gonna find out if it's fully open or not.
You know,
So you could have 2 hydrants. One's reading 80 pounds pressure, the other one's reading 80 pounds pressure. This one flowed 1,000 gallons a minute. This one flowed 500. Why? Because the valve is halfway closed. You still get the pressure reading, but you can't get the gallons.
that's fine.
You gotta have the gallons.
construction workers, they'll put the valves in, the pipes all together and be on their merry way unless you actually, had a water main break, you'll never actually close the valve to see where it is. Maybe there are some that are, not fully open. We'd actually anticipate that. We've seen that in other areas where it's just not fully open and open it up and all of a sudden your flow comes up. Helps everyone out.
Are there any potential risks to doing this that you've seen happen? I don't know what they could be, but like a pipe bursting as a result of just routine maintenance that you've done. Yeah. Are there any known risks associated with this? We haven't done it before, so I don't know what to expect.
We haven't run into it yet.
Okay,
We've been to hydrants where you couldn't, you put the hydrant on there. And you gotta add another 3-foot pipe onto the hydrant, trying to turn it with your feet. It doesn't work. We got pictures of that, we got, we've been all over. Matter of fact, we're down to, New York Military Academy, down to Cornwall and the Hudson. And they had 7 hydrants and they never tested them. We got called in this fall to get down there because the insurance wants to know what's going on. 6 out of 7 failed. And they had that problem. Nobody ever did anything and they were badly, so now they got a plan to replacing the whole thing. And they're shooting for a grant. Once that's in there, they'll call us back down to do the flow testing.
okay, good to know.
Now, as far as, major things happening, John's mentioned pulling really hard, in the winter time. Some of those older infrastructure areas, the pipe is starting to decompose and actually get worse. If we, start turning the valve, there's no guarantee that there's gonna be some kind of, issue. If it's that corroded and that's problematic, but in general sense, it's, kind of straightforward. If you have a torque driver that puts a certain amount of torque on it, so it's not over torquing it, we're not getting the guy with the muffles, pulling on the bar. It's a set number that's going to be applied to try to prevent some of these larger issues.
Hey, thank you.
But realistic. We understand it. Our voice, this but better to know. Now, than that.
Imagine we'll probably have some valves that'll be leaking after you exercise them too.
Possibility.
If there is an open area of pipe and you increase the pressure. Could be popping in pipe. Anyways, I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm gonna have the engineer and Rocco get back to you, Doug and Rocco get back to you, and tighten this up. I think the request for the board is one the board well received. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Probably brings us back to the next thing. If they're not, more chance to talk to these guys about. What was going. Again, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a nice.
So some of the discussions are, there's a $90,000 piece of equipment that they're gonna be working with. And so there's possibility that makes sense for us. Own that piece of- So there may be a reduction in costs associated with their work. Should we pick up that piece of equipment? So again, I do not necessarily want to vote on it tonight, but I do want to hear any issues or concerns.
From a procurement standpoint, is this something we need to bid or something? I mean, the math seems like it's very large contract.
Sounds to me like it's definitely $35,000 or more as far as cost, but it does seem very specialized. There is that,
You're not gonna find other vendors who can do that type of work, I don't think.
whether or not that's true, it's always good for appearances to put on a bid if there's any question about it. But like I said, it's so specialized, and my understanding is they're using proprietary equipment that nobody else uses.
The other issue
We should
is
definitely talk about it.
if we were to build the capabilities to do this. If we were to send a team of 4 men out to do this. Be a 5-year project, and the cost would be well greater than what we're looking at in terms of the contract. My general impression is the sooner we do these things and get them done, the better condition of our system. I truly expect we're gonna need a lot of valve replacements, a number of hydrant replacements. And certainly we'll identify some weak points in our system. And if we can get that done in this season, that'd be a huge accomplishment. We spent $500,000 on each individual water tank.
Speaking of which, is this something that we can ban and eventually bond for?
We already have a $2 million ban in place for the water system, of which we have not assumed that entire ban, so we could put these costs towards that ban.
It seems like something that it definitely is a long-term investment in the maintenance of the system.
Right, so any other questions or concerns that you may have if they arise? Next couple of weeks, feel free to call Doug and Rock.
It sounds like we're gonna be their biggest project. Is there a way we can maybe get a project fee versus a per item fee or some way? When you ask the timeline, they seem pretty confident, but we've got old infrastructure. I don't know that they're gonna be able to stick to their schedule.
I don't need,
We can executive session.
Okay.
but those are the kinds of things, yeah, we can put back in the contract and stuff, too.
Are you have a guess on what the total cost of this is gonna be?
If you do just the numbers alone, you're probably looking at just under 500,000. You know what I mean?
This has never been done before.
We got a lot of valves out there that never been touched or turned. We don't want it.
Main thing is like, this would give us like a base to go off of to start with. And we know where we stand with everything, and then the future, like I was talking to Doug and Ed, like the goal would be never to have them come back. Is to do valve exercising internally and hydrant maintenance internally with your own staff, you know what I mean? But like Ed's point, it would take us years to get to this point, and plus to get this into a database where it was gonna help us with health department, with ISO ratings. I mean, DeWitt Fire has been constantly, before I even got involved, I remember Doug and Ed talking about, they want to go out and do flow testing on our equipment. I don't think that's a good idea to let the DeWitt Fire guys go out and do this. Because then you're gonna have more issues. If we know these guys are out there and we can work with them, we feel more confident with these guys touching our hydrants and valves than you know, not saying do what can't do it. I think this is a better way to go about it. We can talk
It's
about it.
consistent across the whole system. We have 3 separate fire districts. We don't want to be treating the system different in one
Mhm.
part of the town. than-
Blackbrook is right in West Myers work.
Right, right. We want to make sure that the whole town is functional. For water delivery.
Sounds like a lot, but when a hydrant don't work and the hotel's on fire, we have a problem.
Well, we just did 6 water tanks at the cost of $500,000 a water tank, right? So put this in perspective, this is the whole system for
Right.
1/6 of the.
As I say, it's a one-time deal. Once they break it loose, then the guys can go out.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to actually buy one of them spin doctors, like we talked about, to have it in-house, have our own. Have that equipment that we have.
90,000, sorry.
Somewhere.
And
We actually carry that spin doctor in our 5-year capital plan.
like, we've had our eyes on that. Right now, when you get to a valve, it needs to be shut because of a water leak. Without that piece of equipment, we can have real issues in shutting off an area, right? We got a frozen valve that's 4 degrees outside and we can't shut the water off to isolate a leak. I mean, that's, to me, it's a necessary piece of equipment and
We had a few weeks back, a service leak on 298. There's a valve kind of at the end of Northern Boulevard. This was in front of that red barn building, you know what I'm talking, near across from Greenwoods. Right?
Yeah.
So they ended up, there's a valve in there between the system, but they couldn't get it to turn. So they ended up shutting all of Joy and Malloy Road off just for that. You know, but if these valves were working, and we kind of inconvenienced a lot of people because we had no choice for a while. But I mean, with this in place, we'd be able to isolate a lot of these breaks, you know what I mean? And then just fix the area, then get everybody back up and running without shutting bigger area down.
to be continued.
Their number, when he said they thought they could do one every 15 minutes. I did call, independent of that discussion, I did call Onondaga County Water Authority and they said, you know, everything's moving well. When they send their crews out, they can get 25 hydrants a day. So that's just about the number these guys said, right? Now, that doesn't account for having a problem, but you know, when they're humming along, right, that's what you should get. You know, Rock and I've talked, you know, if we had our own people doing that, there's not as much of an incentive because they've given us an hourly rate, right? So they want to keep going. It's not to say that somebody doesn't have to check on them and make sure everything's going. The numbers they're talking about seem to be in the ballpark.
Doug, where are they out of?
They're out of Parrish, New York. Yeah, and you know, when I checked around, I did check with the water authority too and said, you know, is anybody else really doing this on this size and scale with this proprietary equipment and whatnot? And they said, you know, there are a couple guys here and there that come out and will repair a hydrant and do a flow test. But there's really nobody in the marketplace in upstate New York right now who's doing this type of work. So, you know, when they said they were down at West Point and they're up in the city of Burlington and they're over in Carthage, you know, they are out there doing these things. You know, but it would be one of their larger projects from what I see, but
This explains Aqua's billing too. I've publicly stated on numerous occasions. We bill our residents for water that we buy from Aqua at a lower rate. Our rates, they bill 4 times a year, we bill twice a year. Right. For our residents. And administrative fee. In Aqua, they have a hydrant. It makes sense now to me. Sure. I could never figure out what Aqua was charging for. Well, because we weren't doing it. But now it makes sense to me. It's a hydrant maintenance charge in the Aqua water bills. It's $8 a hydrant.
and I think your question, Sarah, was spot on and he answered it correctly. With, you know, is it a requirement or a recommendation? An FPA is a recommendation. Now, when I attend meetings that Aqua's at, and they're selling their services. What they say is, I mean, obviously, they don't test every hydrant in their system because they have a 5-county area. So they don't test all their hydrants on an annual basis. But the response they come back when people say, well, okay, I'm in, Camillus, how often do my hydrants get tested? And their response back is, well, the industry standard is that we try to get out and test every hydrant within the system in a 5 to 7 year period. And that's not to say that we get every hydrant, but, across the system, we have a program, we maintain our hydrants on that type of frequency. So that's just something to think about here too. I've run some numbers and might be something we want to talk about here or with there. It's kind of an industry standard, I think.
So did you teach the younger guy or the older guy on APW when you were teaching there? Which one?
Good question.
All righty, let's go right back to the top of the agenda. Town board minutes. Angela, do we have a date on that or just?
I'm sorry. The organizational meeting would be the first one that are included in there.
January.
The January 8th.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for the organizational meeting minutes. Everybody have a chance to. A motion from Sarah and a second from Max. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion's carried. Okay, the January 8th board meeting minutes. Have a motion from Carrie, a second from Jack. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion's carried. Okay, Max, hire a ZBA secretary.
Yes, so we had authorized last year to post for ZBA secretary. We didn't have a job description yet for that at the time. We instead focused on doing the planning board secretary, but then with Sharon Halpin going off of the ZBA at the end of December, Matt wrote up a job description for the ZBA secretary, and it was the position was posted in the mailroom beginning last Monday. And Sharon Halpin has agreed to take the position. No one else has applied for it, and the rate would be same as the planning board secretary, which would be $200 per meeting.
Recognizing there's only half the meetings.
Yes.
Right. The ZBA meets once a month and planning board meets twice. Any other questions, discussion? I'll entertain a motion from Max and second from Joe. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion's carried. Okay,
Hey,
highway.
I bumped in, I see that Malcolm Smith's on. I didn't know how to use the system, so I didn't get something on, but both Matt and Doug are prepared to talk about the Smith, two buildings on Erie Boulevard. He's here,
Oh, he's waiting for
Yeah.
the conversation. Thank you.
so if you don't mind, could we?
Not at all. Let's bring back to the conversation.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's great.
Malcolm is the owner of the, now I'm gonna forget Malcolm's company's name. Smith Furniture on Erie Boulevard. He reached out regarding both properties to the north and the south of him contiguously with his property and just wanted to know what the state of them were. Both of them at this point don't have tenants in them. They're run down. And both Doug and Matt were able to provide a little more background. Melton was on tonight simply to hear it on the record for
All right, again, this is the kind of issue that was he on at the beginning of the meeting? That
I
was-
didn't see
'cause
him.
this is-
No, he came on after the.
But he would have brought this up in the,
Ideally, yes.
yes.
So Doug or Matt, can I just ask if you wouldn't mind giving an update on both properties contiguous to Smith's?
I don't know the directions. The one that's not the Tokyo Soul. Whatever direction that is from
That
the,
would be the Henderson owned
It's
property.
in the north.
The north side, Benderson, my understanding is that is with our planning board. I don't or can't really comment on the timeline of the planning board on that, but it is on the way to being redeveloped into something better than what's there now. The south side would be the old Tokyo Soul, which everyone here, I'm sure, has seen the building there, at 3180 Erie Boulevard East. It is in very bad condition visually. And Malcolm is right to have questions about what's going to happen there. There is a company that owns that building who originally had planned for a marijuana dispensary at that location and had a tenant selected who I believe had started with the planning board, but then they ran into financial difficulties and they dropped out. So Treehouse, the parent company, was left without a tenant to move forward with that building. They reached out in a letter to me, their vice president, pretty much in a lot of words saying that, hey, MedMen dropped out and we need more time to A, either find another tenant or B, sell the property. I responded with a letter saying that pretty much the condition of the building is unacceptable and it's an eyesore in our community and a very valuable part of our town. And I asked him to appear at a planning board meeting in January to at least discuss with the planning board what their plans are for the future. He did not do that in January, but I believe he received my letter because Doug and I were talking today, and apparently they have erected a construction fence around that building that was not there before, which is a good sign. Malcolm had asked about the town taking action and demolishing the property. And while I think Malcolm's intentions are good, there are certain standards that the town has to see to consider a demolition of private property, mainly that it's a threat to our public health and safety. And so the examples I gave Sarah were, say, there was a situation like this in the city a few years back where the building could be falling over or imminently about to fall over on Erie Boulevard or onto an adjoining property. Or there is an electrical or fire hazard that could burst into flames at any moment. My understanding is those dangers do not exist. The building is standing solid. It is not going to fall down tomorrow. It is boarded up as far as I can see. But Malcolm had asked about people entering the property and doing this and that. They're trespassing. There's no trespass liability. So it's not anyone's property to trespass on and do anything. But our best hope would be for Treehouse to continue, hopefully take more action. And I'd like to reach out again and find out more about what's going on and get them in front of the planning board. So that's a long way to say it's to be continued, but we're further along than we once were.
Matt or Doug, would there be any code violations present that we could press them on to try and help them see the motivation to doing something with it?
Property maintenance? I don't know, the property's clean. It's just a really crappy looking building.
I went out, took a look at the project site a couple of weeks ago. The site looked to be secure. It didn't look like there was any real threat of the building falling down or anything. Henceforth, when Matt sent the letter, I was out there today and there's a construction fence that's been put all around the site to secure it. So I think Matt and I talked about maybe reaching out again to the applicant and just ask them what their intentions are. We're going to take a look at potentially the existing site plan for that site to see what it's supposed to look like. And then additionally, the Benderson site, Malcolm, I think we've spoken on a couple of occasions. The Benderson site, if you'd like to come in or if you'd like to reach out to the planning and development office, they could probably email you what that site plan is going to look like. So with design guidelines, it'll be nicely landscaped. Is it bath and kitchen that's in between your property and the larger property. That is scheduled to be demolished and create a buffer area and additional parking. And the planning board was very receptive towards what the plans look like for going in there. They thought it was a significant improvement. And I did mention to them, Malcolm, that, you know, in the past, there have been concerns about drainage in the back of the property, and Benderson said that to the extent possible, they would work with all the surrounding neighbors to address that issue. So I think, you know, as far as that goes, things are moving in the right direction. You know, the Tokyo Soul site is a little bit trickier, and I think Matt's on top of it. And
I've seen at least something from them. They've taken the time to write a letter and follow up and do something on the site. It's better than what it was. But we obviously need to see more. So I'd like to get that gentleman on the phone, who's the vice president of Treehouse, and just have a discussion with them and ask in a non-threatening way to just come into our planning board and discuss with us what's going on so that, you know, I don't know what you're going to redevelop that building into is my main question. Why they can't just demolish it until something happens? That would be my question, but I don't know.
I think Malcolm might want to speak and we can turn his speaker on. But I will preface with, I've been on the board 25 years now. We've had these types of issues in a number of occasions and properties. We had the hotel out on Sick Carrier Circle. We had the flower shop on Genesee Street, are two of the more prevalent. And in almost every instance, it was wiser and faster to work with the property owners to get them to move than it has been to pursue condemnation. And we've done it multiple times, but in all those cases, it's been a long and arduous legal process to get into. So anyways, if Mr. Smith would like to speak, we're more than happy to turn on his mic.
Okay,
Like is.
yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Thank you for whatever you can do for these two properties. We're having continuous conversations with customers that are giving us very negative vibes on what's going on. It looks like we're, you know, maybe going out of business because we've got disheveled and just dilapidated properties. The roof on the Tokyo Soul looks like it was compromised. They ripped it off. They put blue tarps on there and then they stopped working. The blue tarps blew off. So I think there's probably a lot of, I think there's probably a lot of water damage inside. So I'm guessing the building is a tear down at this point, just for your information. The, in Benderson on the other side, whether it's north or south, to my, as you're facing the building to the left, the kitchen and bath building used to be a bicycle shop. Benderson bought that, and I talked to them. Their intention was they told me to tear it down and use it for additional parking. And I'm thinking I'd love to have them tear it down because it's such an eyesore, and you know, clean up the place. Do it sooner rather than later. You know, maybe they want to wait till we get a tenant that wants the parking, but I guess their intention is to tear the building down. So I love to have them just do it. But thank you for whatever you can do, and I appreciate your efforts. Any other questions?
Thank you, Malcolm.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So I guess the final determination is that we'll continue to work with the property owners and stay in contact with Mr.
So
Smith.
one of them is clear, is going to be resolved, it sounds like, yeah,
Right.
and there's a path forward on that. The other one would just need to have some smart strategy and correspondence, and hopefully we can keep making progress.
I know Carrie was successful in working with Rozzy long in advance of the Chick-fil-A to get him to take down that building. So hopefully,
I'll bring in the heavy hitter for our next call.
If you want to give the name and number, I'll start calling.
Sure.
If it's unacceptable and we can't have it. I mean, it happens way too often with commercial and residential properties.
So if they put up a construction fence, wouldn't that just like delay time? But it's behind the fence. We don't know what's going on behind the fence.
well, we're hoping they're getting ready to take it down.
It happened like today or yesterday. It was very recent when they put that up. So I'm hopeful it's some sort of positive development. I don't know that, but I'm hopeful.
Is this the guy in Chicago when we were talking?
Tree houses. Tree houses in Chicago.
Okay, now, at one point in time, he wanted to be able to appear on the Zoom to the planning board.
He didn't want that. I asked him to do that. He did not respond to that, but he has responded with the action that Bernard just mentioned with the construction. That's done very, very recently. So I need to get him on the phone and talk to him and see what's going on and find out some more information. But I was very pleased actually to hear Doug say that to me today. That at least something has been done.
We can, if there's no action on his part, pursue condemnation, but you can't condemn unless there is a threat to
Be a reasonable
human
basis.
health and safety. And so typically, in those times that we pursued condemnation, we had roofs caving in, we had animal infestations, you had squatters on site.
Yeah, we got all that on Benedict Road.
Is there a way, in talking about the Benderson property, I know that it's before the planning board. Malcolm would like it dealt with, like if they're going to demo it, demolishing it sooner rather than later. Is there a way that we could encourage them, through that process,
I think they're very anxious to get the site cleaned up. When I drove by today, they already have a for lease sale, for lease sign on the front of the building. So they've been pushing pretty hard to get their approval.
Okay.
So I would anticipate they would try to bring it down sooner rather than later, but I'll bring that up at our next planning board meeting.
Maybe just the next time we're talking, with them on that site, say, hey, as soon as you. To help the town, help the neighbor out, these guys could press forward with the demolition of that. Great.
Great.
All right, so again, thank you. We'll take highway to purchase a brush truck.
Yeah. Sent some information out. Did everybody get the information on the trucks, brush truck and the plow truck?
I appreciate the unique email to our personal emails versus having to go into the system.
Well,
Linda
just to
sent out-
double check,
Yes, that's how I got it.
Yeah.
So thank
just to
you.
make sure you got it, till we get everything, all the bugs out of the other. So, first one we'll talk about is brush truck. Got a couple quotes. The Mack did not meet our spec, light frame, light rear axle. What we're looking to do is replace a 2001 Freightliner that we are currently using. Poor condition, very rusty. We'd like to purchase a 2026 Freightliner from Tracy Road. At a number of $161,463. This is probably gonna be possibly 2 years. I wanted to add that in there, that there could be an escalation to this, but hopefully not. We may see it before then, but just worst case scenario, it could be 2 years while we see this truck. Any questions from the board?
Is that just timeline for the pipeline delays?
Just, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yep. Fortunately, supply chain is getting caught up, but it's not quite there yet.
Does this put you out of commission?
No,
The delay of
we'll
the-
just keep using that truck,
Okay.
you know what I mean, until we get the new one. So we'd like to move forward with this purchase, unless the board has any other questions, I can answer on this one.
So if this is not due till 26, how much do you actually put down now?
Nothing. We don't pay for nothing.
You don't have to pay for this.
Until we receive the full service, then we pay them, yeah.
Go for it.
Well, you gotta have authorization for him to put it in.
Yeah, we don't pay for anything, this is receiving.
Do I interpret that as a motion from Carrie?
I'll make the motion for.
A little bit less.
Buy the brush truck.
Do I have a second from Joe? Any further discussion?
Was the Mac was cheaper, but wasn't the first, but
Yeah, the problem was the rear end and the frame was too light.
Light.
Mac would have been available this year.
Yeah.
This next one is a Mac plow truck, which is available this year. They can build this one.
what is it, granite? Where you get granite?
Granite, yeah. Yep. It's gonna call
For the vote on the brush truck, then we can discuss it. So, Bob? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion's carried. Okay, Bob?
Okay, so the plow truck, same thing with the Freightliner, 2 years out. The Mac is a touch more money with the Viking equipment. Beam Mac, which is on Malloy Road, has saved us a build spot this year, so they can get a truck built this year, so it would be a 2025. We should receive it in the fall. We'll have to have the equipment put on it. So that's the reason we are recommending the Mac, a 2025 Granite with Viking equipment for $251,774.56. Any questions on that?
Yeah, for a while we were bouncing back and forth between aluminum or the fiberglass, the pumps.
Stainless.
Stainless body.
This one, we're at the point now where we're reusing our stainless bodies and sanders. So we're actually saving money. It's paid off. We paid a little more money, but
Right.
we're not buying sanders and dump bodies anymore to use.
Okay, all right. That was my only question. And it probably was in the literature.
I don't think I talked about that, but it's a good question though. But we don't, hopefully we can move forward. It'll last a long time because we bought the stainless.
Stainless steel, that's right.
Do we receive it this fall, Rocco? Fall of 24?
It's a plan. Not gonna make any promises because of the equipment. The truck, we have a truck, remember in the budget, we rolled that money forward. We have a Mac that we bought last year sitting, waiting for the equipment to put on it. It's on the list probably early spring, March. They're gonna throw that. So get the truck, the equipment is another supply chain issue and they're just backed up, to be honest.
Who's going away, Mac?
Viking, which will be done in Harrisville.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Entertain a motion. Jack, the second from Sarah. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion's carried.
Thank you.
Okay. Flow connections. Both Angela and I talked that day and we thought we already had authorization on this. Service agreement?
Yeah, it's what Angela just told me, but if you want to have Doug talk a little bit, Brian wasn't here, but maybe fill in the word a little bit more on this. Doug, if you want to talk about that a little bit,
Sure.
backflow.
Well, as part of our annual review with Adair County DOH, it came up, the requirements for backflow prevention devices at commercial installations in the town. Traditionally, the town has kept a simple spreadsheet of where these locations are, when they were installed, and what the status of the program is.
So it's part of the water system.
Yes. So moving forward, the health department would like a more sophisticated tracking method, in simple terms, to keep track of the backflow prevention devices. And basically what they are is they are what they call reduction pressure zone valves. And they're valves that create an air brake at commercial installations. So places like Ultra Dairy has an RPZ, McDonald's on the boulevard would have an RPZ, a church that has a kitchen would have an RPZ. And the reason you have an RPZ is so that you don't get contaminated water flowing back into the public system. It's highly unlikely that happens, but in some cases, Brock and I were talking again today, at Ultra Dairy, they have an 8-inch fire line and they have chemicals they put in the fire line. If that was not separated from our system, there would be a potential to get those chemicals back into our system. Likewise, at a church or a McDonald's, if somebody is washing the sprayer, the spray dishes, the sink backs up, they drop the sprayer into the sink, and we have a break out on Erie Boulevard. There's a potential that the water is going reverse. We're sucking water out, so we need that air gap. And that being said, there are requirements once you put RPZ in that you need annual inspections. And it's very difficult for an entity like ours, or even a larger entity, to keep track of all those things on a continual basis. So this company, Vepo, was recommended by Sean Rush again at the health department. You know, no pressure, but she said others in the area are using it. It works fine for her. She's highly recommended it. So we brought Vepo in, we talked to them. There's an initial cost for them to set our program up of about $3,800 first year cost. And then after the first year cost, I believe it was about $3,000 a year, but once we set the program up, we can take those costs and allocate them back into the program to the end users with a nominal fee of $50 to $100. And a lot of places set that up so that there is a little bit of a fund balance, so that if somebody like Robin Powell is administering that for us and making sure that everything looks fine, then that would be appropriate. It also gives the health department continual access. So we would give the health department continual access to go into that database anytime they wanted. And it makes life a lot simpler for us. It makes the system a lot safer. And once again, just like we talked about with the folks that were out here with the fire inspections, it takes a service that we need to do that is very tedious and time consuming, and maybe something that we can't even keep up with on a continual basis. Outsource it, and it frees people like Robin and Esme to do other things in the office with a working knowledge that that program is out there, and we would get continual reports that it's working properly.
Again, this is another item the health department brought to our attention that has not been ongoing.
Is this an additional software platform that whoever's managing it, Esme, would need to learn?
Yes, but Vepo basically manages it for us.
So they'll keep an eye on the town to do it in all of our resources that fall onto their purview,
Yes,
and then they will notify us if there's an issue.
yes, and they will also make sure that everybody sends in their annual reports. It's downloaded into the database. I'm not sure how many you get these days because it is so tedious, because you have to, bird dog people. And some people, like if it were a church and they had an RPZ, they might not even need to, they may not even know that they need this
Right.
to do this on an annual basis. So,
Right,
I think it's the way to go.
we assume the carriers, the Feldmeyers of the world are aware in compliance, but we don't know that the small mom and pop restaurant, right, diner is aware of the responsibility to this. So we're not into it yet to a point where we're coming back and saying what type of responsibility or collection we would want from them, but it might actually be a level of expertise, right? Like the smaller industries, businesses, like the $50 annual fee for heavy industries that have huge water consumption and multiple intake locations. So it might be at a different level. Have multiple valves requirements for the systems. The starting point is an inventory in an organization of the responsibility and the locations of the valves is with this outfit. And I think we're talking peanuts.
And just to be clear, these pipes are different than the fire hydrants and valves of the other company,
Correct.
correct? Okay, so there's no overlap.
These are in a water feed to a building.
Okay.
So
Like things like that.
everything else we just talked about was out in the streets and the delivery system going to homes and businesses. Now we're talking about a valve. It's responsible. Get a break in a system and it prevents water from rushing back out of burned area, rather than Feldmeyer Corporation. Whatever waters enter that building, this valve makes sure it doesn't leak. Not through intake. And like, first, maybe that, but sewer related issues, we've always recommended a back check valve on a sewer. So that sewage that's in the system can't find its way back out. Okay, so this one, I think we have authorization for, so it's informative at this point. Next agenda item. Authorization for the auction the bus.
Yeah, the buses is gonna be a quick one. We own, Bernard, you probably don't know that we own a school bus we bought 4 years ago or so. It's a huge bus, FM. And our recreation department was using it for various and sundry things. They've told me last year that they don't wanna use it anymore. Rocco said it's in very bad shape. Its inspection runs out 2 days from now. And, Rocco and I have talked it over and we think that the best thing to do with it is to, the Village of East Syracuse still, they would like to buy it from us. But at this point in time, we don't have the title. We're searching for the title. So once we find the title.
So we don't own it.
Trade him a fire truck.
Rocco drives over to the DMV and gets the title. Our best option is at this time, is to probably auction it off for about $2,500.
How do you purchase it?
$1.4 million.
So how did you purchase it? Good title.
That's good.
No, we purchased it. We seem to have lost the title in the great confines of this building, highway department. Buildings file, Sarah lost it. Joe Sharonda's probably got one of his files.
Highway department has all the titles in the life. I can show you any title. they want.
Except for the bus.
Can't take responsibility for the bus, but I will go to the DMV to file for the bus.
Get a copy, make a copy.
My one comment about this is that please just check in with the new director of the rec department and see that she's on board with this issue as well. And I am open to future expansion of the rec department in need of a future bus.
New bus, yeah.
We're running over before and after school programs or senior programs and things of this nature. It'd be good to be able to provide transportation for those in need.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there is a grant that I've asked Doug to look into, but the state just announced $1 billion in electric buses. And I believe municipalities and school districts are eligible. And so it might be a opportunity for us to get a very modern, efficient bus at a low cost.
I know Peter Smith just said he was looking into that for JD. He said in his estimation, he told the school board that they were still years off from that, from a school district conversion standpoint.
Right.
But if we're just talking, one bus and it's not being used 6 times a day, there might be different opportunities.
In going forward, school district's been great to work with. We can maybe collaborate on, let's say, the charging equipment stations or whatever. I'm not sure what the granting program would allow and how much, how many buses you'd be eligible for and for what uses. Typically, my guess is that the state is gonna load this at low income districts, school districts and communities. And therefore, it might not even be eligible on a mass basis of the, but there are areas within the that we might be able to apply. So on. And so again, on a school district basis, and then just for edification of the board, Donna DeCiato has reached out to me because she's aware of our hydrogen program. And she's interested in pursuing hydrogen buses as well. So if we're gonna move in that direction for heavy equipment such as snow plows, that there could be a hydrogen option. And so if these grants have just alternate energy sources rather than just electric buses too, there might be possibilities in the future.
I will cover that with the new recreation director. I was with her today and I forgot about it. I was gonna do that and it was one of my things on the list. I didn't do it. What's your first name?
Patricia.
Patricia, thank you.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion from Jack to authorize the auction of the existing bus. Do I have from Joe? Any further discussion? Call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion's carried. Okay, request for zoning map amendment.
I think Andy's on as well.
He's on, I was texting with Andy earlier.
Okay.
I think Andy,
Do you want me to allow him to talk?
No, I told him that this is not the actual public hearing. The board will be considering scheduling a public hearing for this.
Okay.
So as some background, 6800 East Genesee Street is the old track and racket club building across from Wegmans. At some point in the past, the town board decided that that location was appropriate for mixed use overlay. Now we have 4 of them, so it's MUV 1, MUV 2, MUV 3, and MUV 4, each with different criteria and different things that are going on. This is for an MUV 2, and the actual amendment of our formal zoning map is governed by section 192-121 of our town code. That says that the applicant must fill out a complete application, which is in the agenda packet, signed by the owner, Andy Day, and notarized. It states that the planning board must review and make a recommendation, which is in the planning board packet that was done in October, it looks like October 6th of 23. There is a recommendation from county planning board. Because it's a building that is close enough to roadways that it has to be reviewed by the county. So that's in the board packet. And then additionally attached are site plan documents and signage documents that the planning board viewed when they reviewed this and did their recommendation. So for the town board, the action today is simply whether or not to call for a public hearing. Our code says in section 192-121D that a public hearing shall be set, advertised, and conducted by the town board in order to effectuate the zoning map amendment. I informed Andy Day about the timeline. I said if the board is in favor, then that could be in the first meeting of February. But I should say it's full discretion of the board. The board does not have to do any zone change. They don't have to take this up at all. They could not find. So there are any specific questions, Andy has said he'll be coming, if the board sets the public hearing, he'll be coming to answer any questions they might have about the project. I just see the same as you on the application, that it looks like a floor of office use and a floor of residential use, which is what the board has contemplated for this. So.
Floor of retail, not office, right?
It says on the application, office, medical office. And then it says residential on the other floor.
There has been discussion.
I've not been in the planning board discussion, so I don't know everything that's going on.
They talked about possibly a little coffee shop and, medical and a mix. But on the upper floor, residential.
Does that change their MUV schedule? Okay,
No, 2 is basically the floor line.
got it.
We're up against the neighborhood, we try to keep the height of the buildings low. So those, and then as you progress into, let's say, the new shopping town, get a lot taller. Buildings.
So as I look at it, the current parcel is, whatever, it's kind of the back area in our zoning map. One parcel is still residential in theory. This would affect the entire parcel.
Believe what would happen is that overlay shading would go over that entire parcel, and that entire parcel could be used for all the purposes of the MUV2.
But it would have to go through planning board and gain their.
Which, and right now, as I look at the.
Buffering for the neighborhood, I believe would remain.
Yes, because right now, they're not doing any positional changes on the building. They're using the building as it stands. And I doubt that, yes, that the planning board would want to move a taller building further back to the residences.
The upper level for living space, apartment or single family dwelling?
Don't know the specifics, to be honest. Have they talked about it in the planning board?
It's in the design that looked like there were 8 1- and 2-bedroom apartments that are in there.
That would be my understanding too.
So, yeah, this would be something I support. One thing I would need the office to do is notice the neighborhood.
Yeah, all of
Our
the,
notice requirements, in my opinion, are not extended far enough. Whatever we have on the books by law, I would go blacks. Yeah, and let that name.
maybe all of Kittle and all of Poster or whatever.
Yeah. Get into those other, I think it's like a 1,500 foot requirement that would be noticed on the planning board.
Yeah, I'll get with the clerk's office and we'll do the regular notice and we can do additional notices.
Yeah, it's just let the folks know. Because that is a neighborhood that I'd rather have their concerns up front than them saying they run.
There was a lot of attention for the Ethan Allen situation over there, a lot of neighborhood attendance, so I anticipate this.
I would honestly be surprised. I mean, I don't think it'll be an issue. Putting it more. They basically taking the compacted building and making it residential, there'll be less impact on.
Correct.
Yeah,
But again,
like, give him a chance, let him know.
it's the right to know.
Absolutely.
What it is.
This would be our first fulfillment project actually done in the mixed use zoning since it's been put in place, so. I'm hopeful that it will tell.
Okay, so I'm gonna take a motion from Max. You want to set the public hearing at the
Next meeting, the first meeting, February 12th.
Yep. Okay, so I have a motion from Max and a second from Sarah. Off for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion's carried.
We want to, maybe put a note up on our sign at Erie Boulevard.
Good idea.
Work? Does that work? That's a serious question.
There were a few bulbs that were out, but I think it's.
Oh, that it's ready for
I
business.
thought it was, the other day I went through and I thought it was working.
I can look, I will,
A lot of people look at it, I don't see it that often.
Since it's right there, you know, it's down the street, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
1600 HSC Street Public Hearing, Town Hall, blah, blah, blah.
We get it for free.
Yes.
If I'm not paying for it.
Wait a minute, you got an allowance.
What do we give them? All right, 125 Stanton Drive license agreement for events.
Yeah, I'll let Max.
So I would just ask that we actually put this aside, just because I was just looking at it, the conversation about the fire hydrants, and the water lines made me think, because this is actually quite far out into the right of way that they want to put it. And as I look, it's not in their yard, it's right in the next door yard, but there is a fire hydrant like 20 feet off the street. And the sewer connections, the sewer valves are like 30 feet off. And so I think it's worth looking, and Doug confirmed that they hadn't looked at that there's no sewer or water infrastructure that's going to be behind this fence before we approve it.
Okay, I just, for the record, we have gone in precedence and allowed people to do this type of thing with the license agreement that says a sewer or water break, we have the right to go in and remove the fence, take it down and leave it there. It's not our obligation to replace it or fix it or put it back up.
Correct.
But if we have to get in, they understand and know that. So they're taking a risk and signing an agreement that lets them know that that's the case. So we've done it. It started out, believe it or not, with the high rent districts and mailboxes. So if you go up into certain neighborhoods, there's beautiful brick mailboxes in the right of way, and our snowplows have to be real careful when they go around the cul-de-sac and everything, not to take out the brick. And so they sign a liability agreement that says if you ever hit it with a snowplow, we know we put it in your right of way. It's not our town's responsibility to replace your brick mailbox.
Even beyond the liability though, I mean, I think it'd be good to know whether it is just full consideration of it. Right. We could, but she might not want the fence taken down.
Right.
In that.
Absolutely right. They might say, I don't want to put the fence in there. That's the case.
So,
I'll follow up and I'll reach out to her because she's expecting this to be approved, but I'll reach out to her. Maybe Rocco can go. Yeah, I'll just say that Rocco's gonna come out and see it, just so we can confirm what's going on.
Okay, disability limited income exemption. Exception.
Yes. This is one of the requests from Alcur, same as the next item. This is section, I believe, 170, 115 of our code. Al had asked for the maximum income limits to be updated.
This is an exception too, right? This is not the exception. but an
Exemption. I made that mistake originally, I put exception on there. Max actually corrected me, which I appreciate.
170.
And this is not- What's that?
170-15.
170-15, so
J,
you,
J, John.
170-15J states that we, the town board, can amend the schedule that's in section 170-15 without a public hearing, because no other language in the statute is being amended, and just the schedule is being amended. That means the board can pass this resolution, which I've drafted here, to increase the annual income limits to what it says. This should be exactly what it is. Manlius, this is what Al has said.
and it matches the senior.
Like it's gonna match the senior schedule. And because there are no other changes that need to be made, be done for board resolution, and then we can send E-code to update our online E-code. Really,
So you want to vote tonight?
Al Kerr would like a vote tonight, yes.
How do the residents get notified of this? Or is it impacted residents only? Do they receive a notification or do they get a
Most
pleasant surprise?
exemptions are noticed.
Okay.
Yeah. Typically, it's on the obligation of the resident to sign up. So once you're eligible, you contact the town, then get on a list. And every time there's a requirement for re-registration, sign our office sends.
It's a really good idea, Sarah, to make sure that there's something that goes out to people who may not be thinking about this right now, that they're not eligible.
There are local organizations that serve the population that's on disability, that may be able to be made aware.
Is this a March deadline as well, similar to some of the?
I was asked by Al to pass this, or to have the board consider passing this.
Yes, the applications are due. There's a March deadline for
So
the
the-
applications for this year.
Our residents have a month to get this
So
together.
we get this on the webpage.
Yeah.
If you could,
Okay.
Okay,
get
I'm
it
just
on
going
the
to say the town board's updated.
We have,
We can set up a schedule on that.
we have an email. This to send it out, but the problem with that is it's only like half the town.
The email those organizations though, do we have a list of organizations that work with?
I talked
Again.
to Patty, or to talk to Rec and see if anyone's on. And Al.
Right.
Regulations I
Yeah.
sent to, certainly. Good idea.
All right, so I have a motion from Bernard, second with Joe. Call for the vote, all in favor? Any opposed? Same, motion's carried. A firefighters exemption.
This one is a similar idea, but different process here. So you look at what's in the board packet, it's a short statute. And all it's changing is one word there, or one statute. It's changing from 466-G to 466-A. My understanding is that previously there was a section in the real property tax code for each county. So it would say volunteer firefighters exemption, comma, certain county for all of their different statute sections. Now I'm told by Al that the state has put all counties under one statute section, which is 466-A. So Al asked me to just change that one piece from 466-G to 466-A, and I was told that would cover his purposes. I know Max had some conversations with Al to piggyback on me.
Yeah, so the big change that went along with that in state law is that there used to be a cap on how much could be exempted, and this removes the cap. So whereas before, the maximum was $30,000 basically cap that make up to $30,000 could get exempted. Now it's 10% of the value of the house, no matter what the value is. So if somebody's living in a $500,000 house, 50,000 of that will be exempted from tax.
And that's an assessed value or a market value?
Full market value, which for us is the same, but yes, they do. But it matches the equalization. So for whatever reason, the equalization rate wasn't 100%. They would do 10% of it after the equalization.
Right, and part of it, this is for volunteers, correct?
Yes, it's for volunteers, but talking to Al, it is basically self-reported that there's no confirmation from the assessor's office. The
Right.
fire department send him a list of who's eligible, and that's who's eligible.
And then, I know it's a pet peeve with me, but it doesn't necessarily mean I am coming from a strong position of any reasonableness, because number of.
Appreciate that.
No, because of any firefighter, paid firefighter, number of them volunteer.
Yeah, they will.
Right, so they got a day job and they're pulling out a pretty reasonable salary. And then they're also in a fire department. So not only are they they're in both queues, and so then they run and grab the exemption. And there's, again, like I say, I don't necessarily have to be right about this at all. Maybe they deserve that exemption for that volunteer service, but there's a lot of other individuals out there in much more hardship that could use tax exemptions that are offered to them. And so anyways, I have a little bit of issues with this one in terms of how and who's getting it. I'm not ideologically opposed to rewarding a volunteer. In fact, I fully support that. But there's a lot of abuse of the system, especially on this exemption. That's my soapbox for tonight.
Same exemption that we were talking about a few months ago for the volunteer firefighters, we didn't know what the definition is.
Seniors only, and then put up visibility of firefighters, which is.
Okay, and there was still no, is there a formal definition of what is constituting a volunteer firefighter? I don't think we ever got closure on that.
I never looked into that.
There's volunteer departments.
Yeah.
So once they're.
I would
in
guess
volunteer department.
Firefighter, you're not getting paid. Qualified to be volunteer. If you get paid, you're not volunteer.
But there's a number of volunteer departments now that are paying, you get volunteer departments that have a chief. Paid chief, or you can have a caretaker. Or whatever, and those individuals that are salaried. But even more importantly, members of professional fire departments that are pulling down significant salaries. On weekends. Are out in a volunteer situation.
Don't quote me on it, but in looking through the state legislation today, it did appear that it really didn't take into account whether you were getting paid or not. It hinged on being a member of a volunteer fire department. So.
Enrolled member of an incorporated volunteer fire company.
Yes, so if they paid you for your volunteer service, that's fine.
There's huge lobbies.
For at least 5 years.
They're relatively unchecked. They wrap themselves in a flag as that's piece of fire. So. For whatever it's worth. That's the lobby.
And is this also a March deadline?
So I'm told by Al, yes.
Yes, and yes, in that it would be for this year. We have a firefighter's exemption that's in place already. The only difference would be.
They're not running a stop
It's still
sign.
the capital for 1 week.
We did vote on that, the other firefighter.
No, that's been in place for years. The state created a new exemption. And but left the old exemption in for 3 years.
Okay,
So if you want to leave the cap, you cannot pass this year, and the old fire and the old exemption will still carry on for 24. And 25. The big difference is the cap gets removed once we pass it.
And you're not doing it, you're not deciding anything.
You know
tonight.
my-
You schedule a public hearing. You don't have to schedule a public hearing.
Don't even start it, please. One more.
What's the pleasure of the board? You guys are.
Did I hear a public meeting?
We would need to
Actually, we're gonna
schedule a public hearing.
a public hearing. No vote on the actual statute.
Is that the public hearing?
I'll make the motion to shut the public hearing.
Hear that speech in the meeting.
I have a motion from Carrie, a second from Sarah. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. Unanimous. I favor the public hearing.
Are we gonna schedule it just for immediately after the other one on the
the
call?
zoning.
That's what you're doing, Angela.
It's my worst time of year, but pile it on.
Yeah.
What else do I have to do?
Gotta drive by the fire department.
Hopefully your car makes it that far.
All right, next. He authorized the hire of the DACC clerks. As you guys know, the state audit came back and wanted consolidation of the collection of monies. And we're looking to implement that, and Angela's gonna look or need another.
Oh, no, that's not what this is.
Oh,
This is Dennis's, but I don't have anything.
all right, this is the DACC.
Yeah.
Let me-
I know.
Okay.
Yes, we did that.
Last week.
Yes.
Yeah, or last week. Okay, there is a young man who came to us originally through the community outreach program up at SU. But he has worked with the DACC for the past half a year. And he's been keeping the meeting minutes and the notice, and the DACC has had a budget, and in the past, they awarded minimum wage to their clerk for those services. This internship was up a while ago, and he still continued to work at volunteer basis with the DACC. They'd like to appoint him now to the clerk to keep their minutes and keep their agenda and things going. It would be minimum wage for a couple hours a week. He's a student up, full-time student up at SU.
Joe?
His name's Ryan Bouchard.
Sure, you.
Yeah, he's actually from California originally, and he's in what's the program at SU? Drawing a blank. Maxwell. He's in the Maxwell school.
For his wages, do we have a cap? I don't know if I ever knew how much staff was allotting a max. If they were able to figure that out.
They have like a $6,000 budget.
Budget.
I don't think it would all go to him.
No, you guys only gonna be an hour or two.
Okay,
You can put a cap on it. Let's say you give them 4 hours a month or something towards a meeting, minutes, agenda, whatever you think is reasonable. 6 hours, 4 hours.
but they self-manage, they don't go over their budget, so.
Yeah.
For sure.
And that group does a lot of work. They're important. Yeah, if we want to monitor, we can monitor it, but I don't think they're gonna take advantage of. They might have a 6 hour meeting one day and a 1 hour meeting, another day, so.
That's true. They have had some.
Oh, good, thank you.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion, to authorize the hire of the ACC clerk from Joe and a second from Sarah. I'll call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion's carried. Okay, has anybody had a chance to look at the registry? Check.
I never had a chance to look at it, so.
You want to defer this to the next meeting? Is that? Has anybody looked at it?
Yeah, I looked at it. United Radio, is that police? They're $45,000.
Probably for the police car selling.
Yeah. That's. The only other one on there was, look that one. What's block safety Falcon? $49,000. Block safety
Those
Falcon.
are the cameras.
They're not
Yeah,
for.
the camera.
Yeah, the blocking.
That's right.
Yeah, I looked through it. I didn't see.
Were you gonna ask, Terry to do that quarterly instead of monthly? Did you say that last meeting? Or no?
I think we said last meeting, maybe she could come in quarterly and
Yeah.
answer questions.
Yeah.
Again, it's hard to figure out what a payment is
Yeah.
with words.
In our department head, I did tell the department heads, all of them, that the board was looking to have more reporting from them. Carrie specifically said, you know, I think the board, the department heads in general are looking for direction of what the board specifically wants for departments.
I would take any suggestions that you want, because it's my intent within the next month to sit down and give them, lay out those expectations.
I think that would be.
That's enough of our members, so I didn't get to you today, Angela was tied up most of the day, but I was gonna ask you to schedule a meeting for me with each one of the department heads.
Okay, do you want me to have them bring maybe?
And I can announce that schedule. Others are welcome if you want to sit in. The problem is you get more than the board members. We don't want the individual feeling ganked, and we don't want a quorum.
Why would you do it with more than one department head at a time?
Because I have different expectations.
Okay.
Right, what are the things we'd like them to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
When I talk to the director of planning and zoning, they have a series of plans I want to. When I talk to the rec department, there are certain things where the priorities have been. The Clem Center, Carriage Park. All seniors before and after school programming. Maybe if there's any additional items that folks would like to see the rec department do, I'm more than happy to have that conversation on your behalf. But those have been the relative constants, right? I mean, the town clerk, the expectations are gonna be collected on funds. That's something for 2024 in place, so. We're gonna want to make sure residents have credit card options, some of those types of things. So obviously, we've been talking a lot tonight about the water department. Differences there between property maintenance and water and highway and Doug, Rock, and I have a commitment to have a monthly meeting just over projects. Because we've got a lot of things on our agenda. Spend the Biden money, and we'll bring those projects to the board on a regular basis, because I'm sure people are gonna have questions, for example, about sidewalks on Waring Road, right? Where are we at? Where are we at with the building, right? Right now, we want the security systems put in place, but it's like everything else, it gets complicated. We just can't go in and put the security systems in place. The HVA system, this building hasn't been touched in 30 years. So we need to redo the HVA system and the heat pumps and the ductwork that's controlling before. The number one employee complaint in this building is heat. Right, right. And so we need to make sure that that system is functional before we start putting partitions up and barriers and stuff. So anyways, there's a lot going on, a lot happening. Much of it's for the better, I think, and for the future. We got a number of new department heads. And so it'll be interesting to see how all this plays out in 2024. But we're already through January from a board meeting standpoint. So Okay, so, what's the?
I'll move to accept the warrant.
Okay, I have a motion from Max in a second from Jack. Any discussion? I'll call for the, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion's carried. Okay, any updates? You got attended any meetings or the board, you kind of used? The library, talking about the work of the council's office, skipping the station. I got a couple of things that contracting, litigation issues we'll talk about in executive session. We have a number of executive session issues. There's no other announcements. I'll entertain to executive session. Jack and a second from Sarah. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same. Motion carried. I'll give Angela a minute to disconnect. Connect her. Let me see.